Welcome to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. Really excited today. I love, first of all, I absolutely love when former guests return for interesting conversations. Good friend of mine and friend of the show, Dan Faltyn from BlueMatrix, is back. Even though he is a former guest, we still go through the bio read, which I always love doing. So let's go through the bio read. Dan Faltyn is the CIO of BlueMatrix. He leads the global technology team with 2 decades of experience in design and architecture of enterprise applications and security solutions for highly sensitive data. He brings a deep understanding of financial services from his work at JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs, where he co-developed 2 patented security design patterns. Dan has a Master of Science in Computer Science from Columbia University. Once again, also, BlueMatrix is a SaaS company which provides software for authoring, distribution, analysis of the consumption of financial research. Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me back. I feel like Alec Baldwin on Saturday Night Live, he's like the leading guest, right? He's back so many times. I appreciate having me back.
Oh, dude, this is only the beginning. You're going to be back way more times than just 2. Trust me on that. And you will definitely be the Alec Baldwin for the next 4 years of your recurring role at Saturday Night Live. I always love talking to you and the insight that you bring. So today's topic that we're going to go over is lessons from a FinTech's ISO 27001 certification journey. And we're going to get into what ISO is, information security management system, and the whole standardizations. As you know, from the show, being guys who are listening in for the first time and people who are listening for the first time, we go over interesting news topics for the week, and then we jump into our main topic. So with that said, the first news article I want to cover is something I found very interesting. Venezuela replaces national security currency with Bitcoin. In a fascinating move, Venezuela has dropped their national currency, the bolivar, for any ties to the US dollar, and decided to link their national currency to Bitcoin instead. The economy has been unstable since the death of Hugo Chavez in 2013, in years of hyperinflation. So real quick, how would it work? The government has issued a BV wallet as their central bank digital currency, CBDC, where any Venezuelan can convert their existing currencies, dollars and bolivars, to Bitcoin. They're saying the money is more stable, but still subject to the wild swings up and down of Bitcoin's daily flows. So, and before we jump into Dan's opinion, we have some exclusive footage. 1 second, let me post it. This is Dan's Venezuelan's 2009 vacation.
I'm glad you got that in.
I don't think this shows the right platform to go on what happened there. That's something we're going to talk about offline. But it's definitely Dan having fun in Venezuela back in 2009. So with that said, though, Dan, what are your thoughts on that article?
I was very happy when you sent me that link this morning, and it made me think back to that trip. So I was glad I had those pictures. And pardon to anyone who doesn't find the humor. I know sometimes it's a difficult situations in some countries with hyperinflation, but Nnamdi, as you know, I do a fair bit of travel, and when you go to countries that have hyperinflation, those are some problems that are hard to grasp when you're in a country that has a relatively stable economy. Yeah. And, those pictures, though they were humorous, it was true. I remember showing up with my friends, and we had dollars, and of course they took dollars wherever. But there are certain places you need the local currency. And what you were showing there was the equivalent of maybe $100. And, we had the bellman at the hotel run out and change the dollars for us. And he's like, I think I can get you, 30,000. And he comes back with 20,000 because the inflation just moved so significantly in the hour he was gone. So there's a different problems that they face. So, coming up with solutions to them, reissuing your currency, calling back the old currency, they don't necessarily solve the problem. So this is a very interesting approach to that hyperinflation problem.
Yeah, and I definitely think, I've been anywhere where it's that like, to the level of Venezuela, but in looking at other countries and other guests that we had on, you know, I think it's definitely a pathway for wealth creation or to basically store their wealth in a sense. So you take wherever their currency is worth at this point in time, and if Bitcoin keeps increasing, or even if it remains relatively stable, at least that protects them in a certain aspect, and also gives them just more ability to leverage the money that they've made in other parts of the world, where like right now the bullet was basically worthless to us. We can't really do anything with it, but that same person could come here and leverage cryptocurrency. So definitely, but no, I definitely want to get the stories behind those pictures, or offline. The next article we're gonna cover. Oh, before we jump into the article, we have a Steve McNally shout out. The happy face. Happy Friday to you too, Steve. Let's go into the other news article that we found interesting. So jumping outside of Bitcoin, the other news article that I found interesting was around Clubhouse and Stripe. So Clubhouse is introducing tipping content for creators with Stripe. I found it interesting. Obviously Clubhouse is a social media platform that engages more so voice communication, and you can jump in different rooms and interact with people around the world. It's kind of fascinating in that sense. So with the help of FinTech's giant Stripe, the social network platform can facilitate payments between users, at least to begin with. Clubhouse isn't making money off the service. By connecting a debit or credit card, users can pay each other from their profiles. Creators can enable the feature, which then allows users to tap send money and enter an amount. 100% of the payment will go to the creator. The person sending the money will also be charged a small processing credit card processing fee. Have you used Clubhouse yet, Dan?
No, I have not. I have been following it. I have been following the news where a lot of not necessarily the competitors in that space, but the different attitude that some companies have, like Slack. Slack said they're going to introduce their product. And I thought the CEO his opinion was quite interesting, where he said, they should take it as a form of compliment that we're copying them. I said, interesting. Clearly you have the power to say something like that. But
I love it. I love it. No, I think the potential with, obviously integrating social media platforms that we're on with fintechs like Stripe and others, I think there's huge potential there. I don't even think, like, even on LinkedIn that we're on right now, right? Just something out of the box thought, right? What if you saw someone who, I don't know, he's an expert in his field and you just wanted to pick his brain for a second? Maybe there could be something integrated with that in which, you could get compensated for it. Because at the end of the day, you're creating this content, creating this information. So it's interesting to see a social media platform that's not as concerned with, making the money in the transactions going directly to the creator. Like you have I think they acquired Linda Learning. So we have the learning platform on LinkedIn, but then you pay for your elevated profile and you have access to all of this stuff. But in this case, it's a bit different. So that's an interesting model shift. Let's see. I think you have someone here that Dan. Ephraim Vivas. Go, Dan.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll shout you out, Ephraim. Thank you. We appreciate it. I'll shout you out on Dan's behalf. I'm excited that you shouted him out.
Thank
All right. Going now, moving on from the news, let's jump into ISO. So before we get into BlueMatrix journey with it, so ISO 27001 is an international standard on how to manage information security. The standard was originally published jointly with the International Organization for Standardization and International Electrotechnical Commission in 2005, and then revised in 2013. So that's the book definition. So why is it important? Basically, standards are important. I mean, you have issues with security these days, where we all know about the breaches going on and we see it in the news. And that's because sometimes companies don't have consistent standards on how they manage the information security and so forth. So that's the overarching logic behind it. And Dan, let's get your thoughts. Let's jump that conversation on.
Yeah. So, two things happened to me this week that made me feel much better that my firm started to go down the path of ISO 27001 certification. Number one, the more humorous but very scary one, I saw Snowden for the first time. Have you seen Snowden?
Recently?
Movie? Yeah.
Oh, the movie.
The movie, yeah.
Yeah. It was awesome. I was like, recently, did I see Snowden? I haven't seen him in a while. Last time we had lunch, the CIA was after him. But other than that, the movie was great. I enjoyed the movie.
I mean, I'm a little bit behind. So I saw Snowden this weekend for the first time, and it scared the bejesus out of me. And, I think I should be covering my camera right now that scared me a little bit. That was the first thing that scared me. The second thing that scared me more from a professional perspective, yesterday, a colleague and myself attended an 8-hour training session. It was about 10 different classes with about 20 different presenters by the Incident Response Forum. And it had different sessions with the Secret Service, the FBI, the SEC, members of the DOJ, a whole bunch of law firms, incident response teams like Crawl were there. And I think they might have put it on. And the things you learn about how dangerous the world is. Everybody says, oh, the world is dangerous. The internet, cybersecurity. Hearing the risks in healthcare, in retail, in finance, was shocking. And the purpose of the course was to have you understand how you would respond in an incident. And I will say our journey through the ISO 27001 process, I believe, has helped us define what we will do when that happens. And the thing that's abundantly clear to me is not these certifications like ISO and SOC, you'll hear that a lot. It's not about preventing necessarily an incident, but making sure you're prepared when it occurs, because it will occur. And if people don't think it occurs, have you ever received a phishing email? If it has, then it has occurred, especially a spear phishing email.
I like that, what you just said. I mean, one of the biggest things, it's almost inevitable. And it's not emotional. There's no one's out there trying to necessarily take down your firm or your operation. It's a monetary play. You're on a list. They're going to just keep going through various companies to see which ones they can get. They're going to blast it out. It's almost like an advanced marketing campaign, right? You say if you reach out to X amount of people, you're going to get this small percentage. And that's really what it is. And I think so to the point you just made also, as it occurs, one of the biggest things that we also talk about is more so detection. Like prevention. Like you said, it's not going to happen. But how soon can you detect, and then how soon can you then start your remediation efforts towards that? A couple of comments. One from a LinkedIn user. Medina. She's a friend of the show. I hope you haven't seen Snowden in a while. Yeah. After that whole thing, we stopped communicating. So let's see. Jeffrey Mark. It's not about if it'll happen, but when exactly. Jeff, totally agree. Dina again. Daniel. All of those dangers are the biggest open secrets. It's about what is not being said or discussed. Good point. I like the feedback. Thanks, guys. Yeah. So please, I mean, we can do a whole other show of what you learned yesterday, because that sounds very, very interesting. I know that it's a group called InfraGard, which is a combination between public sector and FBI and so forth. So I'm a member of that. But I really like what you just talked about in terms of that incident response 8-hour session with those different members.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess my last sort of closing comments on that before we get into this journey of ISO, that is the topic du jour. Again, incident response. I think on the training yesterday, it was even mentioned. It's almost a poor phrasing, because incident response, you can think of it. There's three very critical sections. There's what do you do before, what do you do during, and what do you do after? Even though when you hear incident response, you think of just what's happening in the moment. That's what you're preparing for. But there's a lot more to it than just that. So anyways, but on that note, the journey, I guess, of ISO, how did we do that? Do you want to get into that bit?
Yeah, of course. Question for you is, the first question I would ask is, what was the incentive? Like, how did it even come into the conversation that you needed it, or you were going to go forward with it?
Mm-hmm. So, with respect to the name of this, right? The Tech Behind FinTech. Hopefully a lot of your audience is in FinTech. My firm, the firm that I work for, I should say, I keep saying my firm. I do really feel a member of it, but
I think we all should feel like we're all part of it, and it's every employee, everybody should have a piece of it. So it's good to have that type of ownership.
So the firm is in financial services, and a lot of our clients are big banks. They're broker dealers, and so they themselves may not necessarily have an ISO certification or a SOC certification, but some of them demand that their vendors have some level of backing. Somebody saying, yes, this firm knows what they're doing. And over the years, I do about 100 audits a year for our clients. So our clients come to us, and a lot of them are just paper audits, answer these questions. Some of them are in person. Some of them they come to our data centers and they want to see the knock, and they want to, see if we're actually using biometrics and things like that to get in. And so they're all, though, they're usually ISO 27001 based. And so ISO 27001 has, I think it's like 114 controls, something like that, that cover everything from endpoint security, which is, your laptop here. Does it have an encrypted hard drive? Does it, are you doing whitelisting of applications if, it's a corporately owned device? All the way down to, do you have locks on the door of your office? Inside your office, do you have zones that only certain people can go to? So the accounting department, where they keep accounting records, is that segregated from, your support personnel? Things like that. And so why did we start this journey? We started this journey because, to be frank, a lot of our clients were asking us for it. They were saying, we like your answers, but we want somebody else's opinion that what is valid. And also, I think from a management perspective, the whole management group agreed that our organization has grown to a significant enough size that we needed to have more formal processes, procedures, and policies. And framing it in the ISO 27001 model made sense for us.
Were you previously, prior to ISO, following other standards that allowed you to seamlessly or make transition a little smoother?
So we were following ISO 27001. However, we had never actually gone for certification. And, succinctly, I mean, I have some nice little notes here. There's sort of 10 steps, I would say, that we followed, which I think anyone would follow. But the ultimate step is the actual certification audit, where a company that has a different ISO certification to do audits, to perform audits, comes in, evaluates your ISMS, your information security management system, and then they make a recommendation of whether you should be granted that certification. And so we're in that last phase right now, where we've done the on-prem audit. It's called the stage 1 audit, where they've looked at our documents, they've looked at evidence that we've provided. So, as an example, when there's someone who's being hired into the firm, prove to us that you actually did a background check. Prove to us that when you entitled them to their email account, that, you didn't, you followed your password standards, and show us that you changed it when they first logged in, right? All different things like that. And then, the final stage, the stage 2 audit, is after they, verify you've done it for 6 months or a year, they'll say, okay, yeah, you are following your process. And then, every year they'll do a surveillance audit. They'll come in and say, oh, are you still following these processes?
No, that's awesome stuff. Let's go. We have a comment from the audience. Mirko, economy will significantly increase the need of standards, quality, security, control, and cybersecurity, consistency in predicting responses to incidents. To be and remain competitive is no longer a good product, but how you protect the product and service. So I like that, because something we talk about from my consulting side, how do you start using security standards and your practices as a differentiating competitive advantage? And that sounds like what you're doing at BlueMatrix in a sense, right? Like you're saying your clients ask you for this. Now you say, okay, listen, we're going to go through the process of certifying from an external body that we are covering this. So based on that, it definitely differentiates you from your competition, and it's leveraging, because most people look at, in my opinion, look at security as a non-functional, something overhead. But now you're actually using it as a business advantage in a sense. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. There's three sort of tenets in ISO 27001 CIA: the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of your system or the service that you provide. And something that's built in with all of that is sort of implicitly, this process should not prevent you from doing your business.
Yes.
I mean, we could make the most secure system in the world, which basically means someone has to come to our office and log in at a terminal, right? So It's not available on the internet. But, that wouldn't serve our business need. So you have to be respectful of those three areas without impacting, preventing your business from doing its work. You are going to change the way your business works. You are going to instill processes and make your staff do things they didn't do before. But a lot of times, as long as, and I guess I have it sort of down as my sixth step in the process, as long as you train up your staff, as long as your staff is aware of what you're doing and you get that buy-in, Nnamdi, I think you have your SISP, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's the most important element in any security is people.
I mean, people from insider to, that's the biggest threat, right? You can have the most secure system in the world, but if someone gives their password to someone else by mistake, right? Okay, and their device gets lost or stolen, and that's just negligence. But then you have intentional. I mean, I know one of the lessons that I take from my days at Fordham during the cybersecurity masters is when we had some professors that worked in the FBI, and they said two biggest lessons: people are the biggest threats, and also when you contact law enforcement, our goal is not your business. Our goal is to catch criminals. So even in the incident response side, sometimes, before contacting them, there's certain things that you might want to have in place before doing that, because they're not coming necessarily to save your business or find where the vulnerability happens. It's not their concern. Their concern are to catch the person who perpetrated the action. So to your point, those are the two biggest lessons I took from that one professor who's a agent. But yeah, so long-winded answer to your question.
But I mean, so for us, I guess what you're asking, how we got started, there's the first two are sort of that preparation step, why are you doing this, right? And sort of coming up with your context and your scope, right? What exactly you're going to cover? Because the ISO certification is very specific. If you have 4 offices around the world, it's going to cover some of them. If you want them to do all of them, they'll audit all of them. But if you just say it covers this one physical space, they'll do that one physical space. You can say it covers your technology department, but it doesn't cover your, sales department or your HR department.
Interesting.
Scope it down.
So on that, because your business, this is a good point they made, you can now segment it, and then you can tell people, look, we have ISO cert, but it covers this particular aspect, and just detail exactly what it covers. That's interesting. I want to ask you a question, and I don't know if you're going to get through this early. Was the training to really educate your staff? Because I'm assuming it's going to take their time. Obviously, it's a lot of overhead on extra work that they have to now account for, they have to answer. What was the conversation like to just say, okay, here's what we're about to do, guys, and here's why, and you're going to spend extra time doing it, and you're going to be annoyed with me? How did that conversation go?
So Nnamdi, I'm sneaky. All right.
I know.
In a lot of cases, the folks who work at BlueMatrix, I hope some people will admit, when I do things, I do them with good intentions, and I try to make things a little bit fun, and not just, here, read this document and take these questions, right? So how did we kick this all off? About a year and a half ago, I partnered with a firm called KnowBe4 to do phishing training. That was our first step. Because one of the biggest, I mean, this was talked all day yesterday on the IR training class, ransomware, and the vector for ransomware to get in is phishing. And so we partnered with this firm that allows us to send phishing emails to our staff, and they're very convincing phishing emails. And we even, from a technical perspective, we play games. There's instructions, but you're basically playing games with SPF, such that you can allow the mail to come into your infrastructure and not be flagged as spam, even though it's a phony domain name, things like that. And so when we first did this, I told my head SA was the only one I said, hey, listen, we're going to put this in, buckle up. And we sent out to the entire firm, these phishing attempts, and some of them were similar, some of them were slightly different. And I remember it was 10 o'clock at night. I was in our Romania office, and I had one of our guys ran to the apartment that night. He said, Dan, we're under attack, And so, the next day we had a sit down with everyone and said, listen, we want to explain what we did here. And, it's not like people hadn't been receiving phishing emails before. It's just that these ones were a little obvious that they were phishing.
Got it.
Now we do that continuously. So it's not like, yes, do I have training classes where people have to read documents and answer questions? Absolutely. But I also have, people watch a 15-minute video on the OWASP top 10, and then they answer 10 questions on it, right? So I ensure they understand the basics. But, things like the phishing, we do it continuously. So they're training and they don't even know they're in training.
Got a comment from the audience. KnowBe4 has some awesome content. Do you? I know. I sense that you have some type of gamification in there. I don't know. Just knowing you, I think there's something there around some type of something there. Am I wrong or am I right?
There's a little bit. The good thing is in the KnowBe4 platform, that gentleman said, they actually have some of the training. It's not just videos. They are actually little video games, things like that. But, I do treat it like it's a game, right? Because that's how we have, that's how people learn. They learn when they're having fun and they're relaxed a little bit. So I think my staff now thinks phishing is a game. That's Dan again. And I hate to break it to you, gang, it's actually not me. I'm not doing it.
I love it. Mirko's question, Dan, since the launch of the ISO initiative, have you observed an increased risk culture in the firm, and so the employees? And if yes, was it recognized by the management?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think the answer to the question is unequivocally yes. I do find, like I said, the phishing is a great example. Our staff report phishing emails. We have a separate bucket. And so we see who's reporting the phishing attempts that we put out, but also the legitimate phishing emails that come in. And so people are being more aware there. Our InfoSec team that we established, they're contacted more regularly about issues. When people say, hey, I got this weird phone call, or, hey, I got this text message. So it blends between even work and personal. So I think there is buy-in there. And the latter part of that question, the management, I actually have that down as my step 3, right? Step 1 was prepare. Step 2, come up with the scope. Step 3 was management buy-in. Very early on, we went to our advisory board and said, listen, this is important. We need to do this. And I hate to be so crass about it, but the simplest way you show buy-in, you get your management to buy in, is put the money down. Let me get a consultant in that's going to help us with this process. Let me send my staff to training. That's the biggest thing. But then it's also making sure your management demonstrates to the staff that they're doing it, right? So management will take those same phishing, they'll get the same phishing emails. They will take the same training classes. And we even had the CEO brag, the two co-founders were sort of bragging on each other that I got a higher score than you, like I'm ranked number one. No, I'm ranked number one, because one did it before the other. So those two things show the management buy-in.
No, I mean, management buy-in. I mean, for all of these types of digital transformation, talk about digital transformation, talk about security. Without management buy-in, the project will it's not going to take off. I mean, that's to your point. So that's a really important higher step. Like we have it in history. That's a definite higher step. Did you have to? We work a lot, with private equity, with fintech firms, and especially private equity is all about return on investment, like ROI. What's the return on investment? What's the return on investment? Did you have to have that conversation in terms of the ISO, in terms of getting the buy-in?
There was an element of it. I think our sales staff, business development staff, they certainly opined on what clients were missing out on because we don't have that. You can imagine there are some big banks that just have broad sweeping requirements. If you don't have an ISO 27001, we won't even talk to you. You're not an approved vendor. Or if you don't have a similar thing like a SOC. Now, to be honest, a lot of clients will say, do you have an ISO 27001 or similar? Okay. And so you can discuss, well, this is what our posture is. And then they can make a decision. But we certainly had that. But really, an ISO process, I think to get the certification itself will cost you anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 about that. That's what we saw for the audit. And then it's, do you hire a consultant to walk you through the process? So it's whatever that's going to cost you. And you can consider that just your staffing cost. So it is, you are a cost center. I don't think you're generating revenue by doing this, but, and it's hard to say, did the steps that we took, did the 114 controls that we put into place prevent a ransomware attack and prevent, $200,000 from going out the door, right? It's hard to quantify that.
But what you can quantify is, all right. I mean, I'm looking at it from a private equity and also fintech. Like we have these clients or we have these investors that are part of our fund. If their information gets out, what's our reputational impact? Would they invest in the future? How much can be lost there? So it's interesting things around that because we have those types of conversations with some clients as well. From Jeffrey, how do you keep their interest for training? Any incentives at all? Any management failed the phishing test? Was there any panic initially?
Oh, wonderful questions. Well, the first one, again, like I said, I think with the phishing, the training, I don't think the staff realizes they're constantly in training. It just constantly runs. Everyone gets attempted phishing emails a month at random times, at random intervals. So they don't know they're in training. To be honest, the other training, the more mundane, folks, I need you to read our acceptable use policy and then, answer these 10 questions. It's a little bit more of stick than carrot on that one. It's, listen, you need to do this, and then I'll work with my peers and they'll work with their directs to ensure the whole staff takes that training. And now it's a little bit easier during onboardings. We just make it as a part of the onboarding process. You're going to take these initial trainings and get used to it. So it's not a culture shift for the new people. For the people here significantly longer than me, it's a culture shift. But and what was the third question? And well, of course there was panic. I said one gentleman ran to me and said, "We're under attack."
I like it. I'll keep the questions up there a little bit longer next time. So we have those steps. I want to really because this is a really good topic and talk to someone who went through it. I'll add because I want to also talk about how are you storing the information, gathering it? What type of tools are you using? So we went through the three. Can you list some more of your steps?
Man, it's like you've done this before. You're following exactly what my next step were. My next two steps were doing a risk assessment and doing the implementation of controls.
Okay.
So sort of the first step of that was, okay, do we have a handle on what assets we have in the company? And you're a big bank. You might have 30,000 employees and everybody has 2 devices. So you have 60,000 devices out there. We're a 130 person shop. 5 years ago, we were, I think, maybe 80 people, right? You kind of know where all your assets are. You know where the laptops are. You have 3 laptops that are in a file cabinet, and people take them on when they do road shows. Well, I'll tell you what, things changed quickly in March, didn't they? Right?
Yes, they did.
Last year, I think I ordered over 100 different laptops. I probably ordered about 200 monitors for people, all these different peripherals. And so how do you keep track of those things, right? Cameras. Oh, camera, it's not that important. Go watch Snowden. You tell me if it's important or not, right? Did I send out cameras that have a serious flaw in them, right? Things like that. So doing the risk assessment, part of it was doing the asset management, and then that could be simple. You asked about tools. For us, we could do that in Excel. We could keep Excel spreadsheets of assets because it's not terribly complex for us. And then the same thing with our risk. So our asset is, we have a laptop. What are the risks that are posed with that laptop? Well, okay, it gets stolen or someone leaves it, things like that. Well, there's a difference between the laptop of our CEO. There's a difference between the laptop of my salesperson and the difference between the laptop of my person who does, frontline support. There's different risks that each one of those pose. I don't want to scare my CEO if she's listening, but she's more of a target than my level 1 person who's answering the phone.
100%.
So we have to consider the controls around her device differently than the controls around other people. So again, those next steps you talked about are the risk management framework, the asset registry and the risk management framework. And then the last part of that is sort of the controls. Okay, now what are the controls you're going to put in place to protect those devices or assets?
So I'm going to jump with my opinion to that, and then we can. As now, the risk framework and elements are standard and requested by clients. This is a question from Mirko. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Have you observed an increased risk appetite from either senior management or even clients?
Wonderful question. The answer to that is no. And number one, because we haven't fully completed the process, right? We've just gone through that stage 1 of the certification, right? Where we have an opinion by the auditor that says we will recommend BlueMatrix receives this certification. So we're not quite there yet, but we're pretty darn close, number one. And so we haven't really, we may have some clients listening in on here, but we're pretty transparent with our process, what we're doing. And so we haven't completed it yet. So I don't think anyone's saying, oh, you have an ISO cert. Let's take some chances here. I will say from the senior management perspective, I dance a very tenuous dance. I don't know if it's the right phraseology, but I try to instill a little bit of fear into management and a little bit of practicality. And so we're actually looking at going for a SOC 2 certification now. We're looking to go for an ISO 22301, which is certification of your BCP and DR standards. And so I don't know if we're going for increased risk. I think we're going for increased protection.
No, I love it. A few things, because I did a video on this a while ago. Not a show, but an actual like a video PSA. We talk about assets. Hardware obviously is one of them, but what about your software assets as well? Managing versions. Another risk a lot of people don't even think about, not necessarily. I mean, obviously having the right version and patches, that's a security risk. But unlicensed software, if just to know, right? I mean, I think you could. The videos on my profile did it like a year ago. But if you are using unlicensed software and it's reported, you can get fined a lot of money, and people have paid a price for that. It's real, right? Even if one of your employees happen to install something that they thought that can make their work easier, but it's not paid for, and then that same employee can leave and then say, "Listen, this company A is using unlicensed software," even though they installed it. It's a thing. It can happen. How do you what's your process around that? If you can disclose, and mind you, I want to be very protective of what you can and cannot disclose.
Sure.
So I just want to emphasize that, but I'm sure that's part of the ISO process.
Yeah, I know it's thank you for recognizing that. You know, a lot of times we will do, we're subject to audits by our clients, and I'll provide them the policies and procedures, and they'll say, no, I want to see the configuration files, or I want to see this.
Oh, wow.
And I'll say, apologies, no, you can't, because I don't know what their contrros are, right?
I love that.
I might end up sending a configuration file, and how do I know they're not putting it on their personal phone or writing it down, or they're printing it out, right? And so that information leakage, no, yeah. So thank you for recognizing that. But in terms of that, I guess it's, yeah, the implementation of the controls. We use endpoint protection. So all of our devices that our people use have some software that we have on there that allow us to do three things. And this is pretty generic. Number one, we ensure that things like antivirus is installed and signatures are regularly updated. We make sure the devices can phone home. And if they don't phone home after a certain period of time, we can launch an investigation to find out where it is. Somebody goes on vacation for 2 weeks, you kind of know that, not a big deal. But with that, you have the ability for it to be remote wiped. So should the device, be reported as stolen, you can wipe it and nuke it, things like that. So there's a lot of different vendors for things like that. But hopefully that answers your question there.
No, that definitely,
that's like what we're using.
that definitely does. And also a very important point that you brought up, and I think this is a good lesson learned for others, especially those of us who are in the vendor-based business with providing services to our clients. I love the pushback, right? You now have a particular customer asking, listen, the questions are one thing, we want to actually see the files. And you, because of, you have 2 security patents, you have a security background. You're like, well, I don't know. I know you want to check with me, but I don't know about you. And that's a brilliant pushback, because in some situations, especially when you're vying for new business and opportunity, you want to keep people, it's the say yes to anything mentality. People don't push back like that. And I love the lesson. I hope others get that from this show as well. When anything that can also jeopardize your security standards or your company as a whole, you could push back legitimately on client request if it's going to impact you at that phase, because you do not know their controls. So that's a very, very valid point that you brought up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny. I had one client once who, they reviewed our password policy, and we follow a pretty standard, policy for that. And they had made some sort of absurd request where they said, okay, well, we want, it to be 32 characters long and changed every 8 days, and blah blah blah. And no, I mean, and it's even asked them, well, what standard are you following? Like, that's not a NIST standard that I'm aware of. It's just, well, we thought it would be more secure. Well, not necessarily.
Because I mean, that's a whole other security conversation. Melina has Manella. So I'm like, that's Marlene. Okay, let's say Marlene. Sorry about butchering your name. Apologies. Can you please tell us if you've seen a recent increase in the number of prospective clients since the word is out that we're in the process of getting the ISO certification? So it's obviously one of your BlueMatrix people.
So not yet, because word isn't completely out yet. I think this is sort of our announcement policy.
Coming out party.
Had some sort of conversations about how we wanted to phrase where we are in this process. Our clients are aware that this effort is undergoing, but and internally we've patted ourselves on the back and sent ourselves the congratulatory emails, but we're not yet at the stage where we've put the logo up on our website and send out a formal press release, right? So I don't think, no. To answer the question directly, have we seen an increased number? No, not necessarily, but definitively it has opened up the playing field a bit. So our sales folks know, look, this is a client we couldn't go to before because that was a deal breaker. Okay, well, now we can go to them.
That's definitely interesting. And I know, guys, thanks for hanging in with us. I know we're 15 minutes over. We're talking about lessons learned from ISO. It's definitely a journey. So it's definitely going to be a longer conversation. So I appreciate your time, Dan, and the audience for chiming in. Dan, let's go through all of those lessons that you've learned. You got some more steps.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last ones I think are just a little bit more almost mundane, but it's, ISO is rather strict with its documentation requirements. So making sure that you have those buttoned up. That's where sort of having a consultant in place helps. Somebody who has an ISO certification as a lead implementer or a lead auditor. There's a certification for that. Making sure someone can walk you through that, because your auditor will be quite particular there. Then there's the gathering evidence. So you said this is your policy. You said these are your procedures. Prove it. So pull up your JIRA tickets that show you onboarded a person or offboarded a person. Show your proof that you've checked, the user accounts in AD every quarter or whatever your policy is. So there's sort of that sort of stuff. Then the last two are sort of the same, and they're kind of you have to have. My advice to anybody going for their ISO certification: have fun. Hopefully you like doing this stuff. I mean, I enjoy doing this. So one is an internal audit. So our consultants firm that we use, they basically did an internal audit. They pretended they were the ISO auditors and walked us through what was going to happen on our audit days. And then we recorded what we did well and what we needed to improve upon. And then the last step is the actual audit. It's anywhere from 3 to 5 days with auditors examining, looking at your documentation, asking for evidence, probing for areas of improvement, and then a lot of discussion, a lot of bantering back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, no, these are all great lessons that you mentioned. I know one of the things that we work on is something called security performance management, in which we have a platform that enables you to store those documentations and have it digitally. So it's continuous. It's not like, okay, this is a static situation. You can log on, check it anytime, and add updates throughout the year. So that's a selfless plug from my end. You could definitely learn more about that. We could talk offline about that. Dan, it's one of the major, the challenging things is to take something like the ISO 27001 and make it interesting enough for good content. And I think you've done a great job today in doing that. Obviously, it's not for the masses, but there's a segment of people and companies that really would love this information and can learn a lot. So I appreciate your time today, and also love to congratulate you on going through the process and sticking it through. We talked offline, so I know you were going through the process, and definitely like to talk more about that with you. To everybody that's tuned in today, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for your comments and the discussion. You guys really keep the episode and the show lively, the back and forth. So please keep the comments coming. Even if it's a hello, I'm here, happy Friday. It is all welcome and all good. Dan, what are your closing thoughts? And also, how can people find you? What are some links? Anything that you want to plug, including BlueMatrix?
Wonderful. Well, first off, thank you for the opportunity of having me on here. The security concept, for people who are taking it seriously, it's not just our firm, it's every firm. Everyone needs to take it seriously. So because hopefully there's some of our clients on here, and they should recognize that just as seriously as we take security, they probably take it just as seriously as well. And it's a partnership, it's a relationship. And, in this digital world, we're all sort of partners, right? So if everybody tries to make the world a little more secure, hopefully it will be. It's a little grandiose, I know, but again, thank you for the opportunity here. Anybody who wants to talk about this groovy stuff, LinkedIn, I think I'm prominently linked to this, the video here. So that's.
I tagged you 1,000 times on 1,000 different platforms, Dan. Literally tagged you everywhere. So,
but thank you again.
No worries. We have a last comment. Mirko, thank you, Dan and Nnamdi. Very interesting. Mirko, thank you for your comments. Really appreciate you, Jeff, Medina, everyone who commented. Marlene, Stephen earlier. Yeah, appreciate everyone. I think Marlene was on YouTube, not LinkedIn. We are posting on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. So with that said, we will close out the show right now. Then hang out for a second, and everybody else have a great weekend.